after we moved to Los Angeles. I experienced homelessness from the age of 15, 16, all the way until I was 18, 19 years old. I seek services at Skid Row shelter in downtown LA. And then I became a coalition member at United Coalition East Prevention Project, which is a community-based prevention program in Skid Row. I currently was afforded an opportunity with Downtown Women's Center as a peer support specialist, and I maintain a position with the company today while simultaneously pursuing a bachelor's degree in psychology and a minor's in American Sign Language. I assist with community organizing. I have a really big passion with assisting my peers of people, women and girls who have gone through homelessness like me. I am still an alumni at the shelter that I stayed in for many years called Covenant House, California. I'm really passionate, honestly, I'm really just really passionate about this subject because it's experience that I have gone through. And I just believe that there's so many reasons why youth are unhoused. And I'm really excited to just be a part of this conversation and really get into talking about the impacts of homelessness on myself. If anyone has any questions, and when the questions come up, please don't feel free to ask me anything. I'm really an open book. Unhoused youth to me isn't just a topic, but something that I live by. I always believe that if I can help anyone who's been in my position, I will. And I am really just excited to be here. And I'm great. Yeah. So like we have panelists of women. That's amazing. But
thank you so much. And if you need a mentor as a psychologist, I'm available. So let me know if I can do anything to help you further your studies. Okay, Damaris and Lilian Macias. Unmute Damaris.
Does it matter who goes first?
No.
Oh, okay. All right, I'll go first. Hi, my name is Lilian Macias. I'm the daughter of Damaris Macias. So I'm 16, almost 17 years old now. And sorry, I have some notes from
Sorry, this is a really tough subject for me and Lily.
That's okay. Just take your time.
So I guess the story of me and Lily. I didn't think it was going to be so emotional, but me and Lily, I guess I'm going to try to do a long story short, but when I was 19, 20, me and my high school sweetheart, he had gone off to the military. He came back. He had PTSD, and I didn't understand what that was at the time. And me and him, we were gonna get married. I got pregnant, and but he was very violent, and I didn't understand that he was suffering through PTSD. And when I was about 5 months pregnant, he strangled me, and I said, "This is enough. We're not doing this." And I cut ties with him. And then I went to school for psychology because I wanted to understand what was going on. And I got my bachelor's in psychology, minor in sociology. And I couldn't decide what I wanted to do. So I got my master's in social work. And I really loved the work because there was this component of spirituality. Social work had this broad piece. They look at the person as a whole. And I really loved that. And at the time, when I was pregnant, I was very religious, and they kind of put their, they really were like, even though I was in an abusive situation, they were like, well, you made your bed, you got to lie in it. And that was really hard on me. And I had left the church. And so I really left into the point where I was atheist. And so all these things, you know, I never not let my daughter not be religious. I always told her, you know, you decide, you choose, but for me, that was my path. And so I went on with my life. I helped people in their journey. You know, I did psychotherapy. I got my, I was earning my hours to do therapy with people. During that time, I got into a really bad accident, and I had lost my memory. I got a brain injury. I injured my neck and my back really bad. And so I could only work part-time. And so me and my daughter, you know, we're living our life, doing what we could. I was only making about $50 an hour. So, you know, I got to live with my mom. I moved back with my mom, and things were okay. But when Lily was, so that happened when my injury happened when Lily was about 9 years old. So fast forward, she was in 9th grade in high school, and she got a really bad injury. And so that's what set me off financially. I could no longer help my mom pay bills, and she was not having it. And so me and my daughter ended up homeless. And so that injury pretty much set me off financially. We ended up in homeless shelters, and I lost my job because they found out that I was homeless. And, you know, they were kind of, oh, well, you know, we're a psychology office, and, you know, if you can't handle your own life, are you going to help other people? And it was a shock to me, because I thought, wow, you know, I'm over here, you know, trying to do my best, but my best is not good enough. And we couldn't find shelters in Los Angeles. We ended up in San Francisco. And weirdly enough, her dad found us after 14 years. He found us in San Francisco. It was the weirdest thing, you know, and we were actually in a domestic violence shelter. And the stipulation was that, you know, as long as I never let my abuser know where we were allowed to stay. Well, if my abuser found me in San Francisco, we got kicked out. And so we went to the victims unit, the police station, and they were able to help us. We actually had to move to Vancouver, Washington, because since my abuser found me in San Francisco, no shelter would take us. And so all of these things were happening, and Lily went from a straight A honor student to straight Fs. I mean, she had to do online schooling. She didn't understand what was going on with school. She had to leave her friends. She had to leave. I mean, we lost our pet. We had a turtle, and we couldn't take the pet to the hotel. You know, she lost her friends. She lost her stability. She lost her grades. You know, she was having such a tough time. And me as a parent, all the amount of support that I thought I was giving her wasn't enough. And it was so hard on both of us, because everything we thought we knew and all of the things that we were told, you know, do the right thing, it wasn't working. And so, but oddly enough, you know, it brought me back to my spirituality. You know, being in Skid Row in San Francisco and seeing all the horrible things, and me and Lily had each other, and I told Lily, I think there's somebody up there who loves us, because we're safe. We have food on the table. We have a shelter. We still have the car, you know, and it was like looking at the positive. We're safe. And I was like, somebody up there loves us. And believe me, you know, that's a miracle. If anything that I took out of it, I was like, there's somebody up there. I don't know what it is, but you gotta believe. And somehow, some way, you know, I mean, there were people along the way that helped us. And so, you know, if you have to look at the positive, you have to have a good sense of humor, you know, but it's still hard. I mean, to this day, I mean, those scars, you know, those emotional scars, they take time to heal, you know. And I don't know if Lily wants to talk. So I think Lily got a little emotional, so I
It's
don't
okay. And she can participate later, and if she hears a question or a comment that she'd like to chime in on, please feel free.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay. So those are all the speakers. So does anyone in the audience have any specific comments or questions? Otherwise, I can lead with the discussion. So just on mute. Hi, Michael.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you, Dr. Barber, and thank you for the special care that you took in not only introducing the panelists, but giving them emotional support. And I know how tough it is to discuss such issues. And I thank Damaris and Lilian, who we invited to participate, and we're just grateful that they were willing to share, and
Yes.
we'll be praying with you all as you go through this journey. My question for any of the panelists, when you think about young people and being unhoused, is there any stigma attached to that when you think about friends, schoolmates, folks in your churches? Was there any feelings of that you were looked at differently because of the fact that you were not living in homes like other people were living in your neighborhood?
Adeline, Lily, anybody?
Okay. Yes, I remember a time where I had just got this job. It was my second job in my life, and I just turned 17, and I got a job at Verizon Wireless, and it was right down the street from the shelter that I stayed at. And I was working there for a whole year, and I was with it. Oh, I worked there for 3 years, but it was in that first year that they didn't know I lived in the shelter, and I got sick, and my boss said, "I'll drop you off at your house," and I was like, "Okay." And he drove me down the street. Like, it was literally just you got to cross the light, and it's right there at the corner, the shelter, huge. And he said, like, when I came in the next day, because I was just like, wasn't just feeling good. And he said, "I can't believe you live in the shelter. You don't look like someone who lives in the shelter." And I was like, "What?" And he said, he said, "Every application I've gotten from the shelter, I've turned down, because that shelter has a bunch of homeless youth that are always stealing, and they're, they don't look like they would know how to work." And like, he was just going in, and I'm looking like, and I was getting little like I was weird for me at that moment, because I was like, "Are you seriously telling me that because the address I put down on my resume was the address to the general relief building where I was getting my mail before I got into the shelter." So it was very just, I don't know. It was like this person he thought I was broke at that moment. And he told me after working there before I left, he said, "Oh, if you know anyone at the shelter that wants a job, I'll give it to them," because he said, "You made me think that maybe I should hire more people there." And
That's wonderful.
I went home in tears, because I was like, like, this persona he believed that every shelter child was like, we're just thieves, stealing, don't like runaways, that were either, he asked me why I was in the shelter. Was I a runaway? Did I have kids? And I'm like, none of that is the reason why I'm in the predicament I am now. And I think when people find that out and they really listen to your story, they're so surprised. And that's why I believe that it's so important when people tell their story. I don't think you should go around just saying, "Hey, this is my story, don't judge me." But but I think it's important when you have the opportunity to speak and talk about your story and destroy those stigmas and destroy those stereotypes, that you should. Even if it makes you uncomfortable, do it, because you never know who might be listening and who you may affect. So yeah, that stigma I destroyed it. But it was I got it. That was the most surprising situation that ever happened in my life, around, stereotypes and stigmas and stuff.
Thank you very much. And you're absolutely correct. Lilian, did you or your daughter have anything to add to that question?
Yeah, I think when I had gone to my employer and I told him, you know, I'd had that job for almost 3 years, and my boss was my mentor, and I thought that I could trust him. And when I told him, you know, this is just a temporary situation, and never in my life would I thought that they would fire me, because it was kind of like, I need the job to show that I can get my own apartment, you know? And so yeah, it made me think twice about who to trust, you know? But yeah, there's that there is a stigma, and then there's like times like these where you're invited to tell your story, and then it's empowering, you know, and then you hear other people's stories and you're just like, go girl, you know, get it, you know. But yeah, you know, sometimes it's hard to know, you know, time and place, you know.
Right.
But definitely.
Janet, did you have anything to add from any of the people you've served? We can't hear you. Your sound is off. Yeah, your sound is completely off. I'm not sure what's going on. Okay, okay. Hopefully her sound will come back on.
Can you hear me better now?
Yes, okay.
Okay. I actually I unplugged my phone. So
Oh, okay.
I mean my headset. So what I wanted to say is a sense of normalcy is what everyone has mentioned, right? They want to carry out their day and maintain a normal life. And that's what young people do. They're no different than anyone else. I always say this: being unhoused is not a title of who you are. It
Right.
is a situation, right? And oftentimes when we talk about youth who are going or experiencing an unhoused situation, we're talking about the experience and not who they are. And I think your speakers just illustrated that.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, let's move on to one of the other questions they wanted to pose in this segment. And how does being unhoused affect youth's ability to form meaningful relationships? Anybody?
Okay. So this question hit home for me because I can form a relationship with people very well, but keeping relationships I feel is harder because of the fact that I have dealt with abandonment issues, and I have dealt with insecurities, and I have dealt with insecurities around self-esteem and confidence. And sometimes, like, for example, I'll meet someone and I'll be like, oh my God, this person's amazing. And I'll try not to talk or do too much to where they'll leave or be out of my life, because I had so many situations where someone will come into my life and it kind of feels like the older I got, I was like, I'm 25 now, but the older I got is the more I noticed that people come into your life and they'll I won't say they'll take what they can from you, but they'll take what they need at that time. Like, you might be just that what that person needs, that temporary person in their life at that moment, and they'll move on. And sometimes I have to be like, dang, I formed this relationship and then they're gone. I formed this relationship, then they're gone. But I feel like it's because most of the relationships that I formed have been with people that have experienced homelessness like me, and who are or experiencing homelessness, and I'll help them, and I'll be like, oh, let's go here, let's go apply to this housing place, let's go do this, let's go do that, and I'll help them do all that, and then their life change, you know, that they now have goals that they want to set. They will now have a roof over their head. They can be like, I can't say you can be anything you want to be, because there's still some racial and structural barriers that are just holding us back as you know, people of color. So but now they have an opportunity to go for and fight those structural barriers that held them back before. So I still have those people in my life, like they're like on Facebook, but they're not someone I talk to every day or even every month or every year. But when I do talk to them, it's like I've never stopped talking to them. And that's what I've always gotten from people. They're like, I haven't talked to you in 3 years, but I feel like I've just like, we've never stopped talking since yesterday. Like, I feel like I just talked to you yesterday. It feels like nothing's changed. And honestly, I think the ability to form the relationships are there because of the fact that I do have abandonment issues. And I always think, like, if I can meet someone and they can be a part of my life, even in a small way, I want them to be, because you never know when someone will pass away or the last time you'll see that person. And I'm just an emotional person, so I'm always like, be my friend, talk to me. I think it's mainly, and I think that also comes from the fact that I became unhoused at 16. So a lot of the friends that I had back in high school, or the ones that I considered friends, we didn't link anymore. Like, we didn't connect. I would go to school and I would see them, but they would complain about things that I didn't understand, like their parents giving them low allowances or their parents grounding them. I'm like, in my head, I'm like, you have someone who can ground you right now? You have someone who gives you money? I was like, I wish. So I just think that for me, if I can keep a connection for a very long time, I will. Even if I only see that person they could be a seasonal friend, a yearly friend, a day to day, but not every week friend. I'm like, as long as, you know, I have that person in my life in some way, I'm happy.
Thank you. And let me just add to that. I couldn't have kids. I got married late at 44 and I couldn't have kids. And at 46, I adopted a 2.5-year-old from foster care. And let me tell you something, you don't have to be 16 to have these issues. At 2.5, 3 years old, my daughter was still struggling with the knowledge that her natural mother led a life that she was not capable of caring for her anymore and lost custody. Then she went to a foster home where the foster parent preferred her own children to her, and she fell to the wayside. So even by the time we got her at 2.5, almost 3, she knew what it was for people not to connect with her or not value her enough to do right by her. And I think, thank God I was a psychologist, because I think, you know, other person adopting this kind of child and not being well versed in all of this stuff and knowing kind of how to navigate that, it's hard. I don't know how they do it. I had to use every bit of learning, I think, to get her to where she's now 20 and able to have a boyfriend or girlfriends and know that, no, your parents are keeping you forever till we die. We're not taking you back. Or it's just been a very, very hard road, but definitely worth it. And your self-esteem, when you figure out that your parents who gave birth to you don't want you or do something to not care for you your entire lives, I can't tell you the damage that does to a person inside, and especially females. I think because we emote more and we feel more, it kind of hits us, you know, where we experience it, you know, males too, but they do it in a different way. So yes, it's very, very hard to form really healthy relationships right off the bat with that kind of a beginning. So if you meet people like that, you really have to understand where they come from, what they may be struggling with, and no matter how together they seem to be, there's something going on there that needs delving into and helping if you can. Lilian, Damaris, did you need to add something?
And
Or Lilian?
And Dr. Barber, we're at the last 7 minutes.
We're out already?
At the last 7 minutes. I'll go ahead and I'll play.
Okay. Well, let me get this. So we know kind of the problems. Can you guys help discuss what can we do as a community or as individuals or as professionals to help this population navigate all of these difficulties that we've been hearing about? What's like a one sentence or a couple sentences? Janet?
I always say people matter, and helping young people connect to permanent connections, whether it's helping them build their social capital, the social networks, so they can build their own personal net worth, I think is one of the most, I feel is one of the most important factors with helping young people who are experiencing an unhoused situation.
Okay, thank you. Damaris?
Lily's here, and one of the big things that we always said was we need a hand up, not a hand out. And definitely one of the things was we were like, if we have to look at another pastry, I mean, thank you, but you know, we need a job, we need opportunities, you know, we need, you know, she needed help with tutoring, you know, there were things that were more practical that we needed during that time. I mean, not that we were ungrateful for the things that people try to do with their loving heart, but we need practical solutions, not just, like we said, not a hand out, but a hand up.
Right. And I know for me, any school my daughter has attended, I've always been an involved parent. And I always ask the administration, is there any child in need, like they don't have enough to eat, they don't have clothes, they don't have, you know, somewhere to go to for the holidays. So I was always looking for the disenfranchised children, whether it was preschool, elementary. And so me as an individual, that's how I've always helped. And anytime foster care, you know, any of my friends call for me to do anything, I do it, you know, whether it's speaking, whether it's, you know, showing up, whether it's, you know, mentoring. So as an individual, even though I'm not hooked up with a community organization or anything like that, and I live way out in Chino Hills out here, but my heart is still in Los Angeles, where I lived and worked for so long. And I'm always trying to find ways to give back to anyone. And I even have my daughter, who's like a mini me now, at all the schools she's ever gone to. I always tell her, look for the people who sit outside of circles. You know, you have your group, but look at the people who are sitting alone, you know, and you go sit with them, you know, see if there's anything you can do. So I've always encouraged her and, you know, kind of trained her to do that. Damaris?
I have to say that's one thing about Lilian. As a child, I always told her to don't be a bully. Always find the friends that, you know, if they're being bullied, you better stand up for them. And I think throughout the time that Lily was having, you know, we were homeless, she was always able to make friends. I mean, even in the shelters with the little babies and the little kids, you know, she was grabbing the babies and having fun with them. And I mean, she was never alone. But I do think that me personally, I don't want to speak for her, but I saw maybe that she missed her friends, you know. So there was like that good and the bad, you know, like she could make friends with anybody, but it's hard to be away from the people who you're close to, you know, who you've grown up with all your life, and then you have to. So, but having that skill is still good, you know, to be able to make friends.
Right.
Dr. Barber, any last words before we close out and talk about the survey a little bit?
Yes, I want to thank everybody who participated in this, my wonderful panel. Thank you so much for joining us. And please, if there's anything I can ever do for anybody that's listening to this, just let me know. Genesee always has my, you know, have my heart from day one. So I've always been affiliated with doing stuff. It's a wonderful organization. And I just wish you all the best, and encourage you to always, you know, talk things out. You know, when things are not quite right, find somebody, talk it out. If you're like me and somebody's not available, I talk to God all day long, you know, but have something or someone that you can always make you feel better, make you feel whole, and always strive to be the best form of yourself that you can ever be, and let no one take your joy away from you. Thank you so much.